Alright, let's look at writing an equation of a perpendicular line. So recall that perpendicular lines are going to be two lines that cross. When they cross, they make 90 degrees. And these two lines, their slopes are related. Their slopes are opposite reciprocals of each other. So if I told you the first line was 5, had a slope of 5, then that means the perpendicular line would be the opposite. So this is a positive 5, so the opposite would be negative. And then the reciprocal of 5, well, this is like saying 5 over 1, so this would be 1/5. Now to do this today, we're going to go back and use our point slope formula. Hopefully by now that you've started to have it memorized. So our point slope formula is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So let's look at our first example. Alright, so the first thing I want to do is write my slope. My slope is 1/4. So if we were doing parallel lines, then that would be the slope we're going to use. But I want to know the slope of the perpendicular, and I'll use the notation for perpendicular, upside down t. Okay, so start with the opposite. So this is a positive. So it's going to be a negative. And then now the reciprocal. So when they give you a fraction, all you got to do is switch it, flip it, so this becomes 4 over 1, and then we'll simplify that to -4. So the slope we're going to use is -4. So now we'll write our point slope formula. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And so the two things I'm not going to change are the y and the x. So I'm going to plug in a y1, I'm going to plug in an m, and I'm going to plug in an x1. So our slope we're going to use is -4. So we're going to put that where the m is. I'm going to plug the -4 right there. Now we're going to plug in our x value. Our x1 is going to go here. So this is our x1 value. So just 2, I'll write it so you can see it, 2. And then our y1 value is going to be this one. And so that's going to go here. So this is kind of just like what we did yesterday. Alright, so I'm going to clean this up, make it a little bit easier to work with. So it's just y minus 3 equals -4 times x minus 2. Now we simplify, so we're going to distribute. So we're going to go -4 times x gives us -4x. Now we're going to go -4 times a -2. We treat this minus like a -2. So negative times a negative gives us a +8. And since the left side there's nothing to do, we just rewrite it, y minus 3. And so our goal is to have y equals something. So we want to get rid of that -3 there. So we do the opposite. We add 3 to both sides. So the 3's go away, and we get y equals -4x plus 11. Let's look at our next example. So we're still going to use our point slope formula. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And so I want to just look at this and write down what my slope is. So my slope is, well, this doesn't look like the last one. It's not written in slope-intercept form. So before I can find the slope, I need to make it look like y equals mx plus b. So to do that, we just need to move the x to the other side. And since this is a positive 4, we just do the opposite and do minus 4x. So this goes away, and so now I get y equals negative 4x plus 5. So the slope of this line is m equals negative 4, and so the slope of my perpendicular line, since this is a negative, we start with the opposite. The opposite of a negative is a positive, and now we do the reciprocal. So when it's just a whole number, put it over 1, and then flip it. So this becomes positive 1/4. So that's going to be the slope we're going to use. And we're going to take that and we're going to put it here. So I already know that that's 1/4. And so now I just need to plug in my x1 and y1 values. So we'll call this x1. We'll call this one y1. And since these are both positive, I don't have to worry about changing any of the signs. So now all I got to do is distribute the 1/4. So don't worry about the fraction. The fraction is going to work out nice. We're going to get 1/4 x. And so now when we go 1/4 times 8, all you got to do is put this 8 over 1 and then multiply the tops. So 1 times 8 gives me 8. 4 times 1 gives me 4. And now 8 divided by 4 is just 2. So it's going to be minus 2. So the fraction goes away when we multiply by that 8 because the 4 can go into 8. Okay, so now we just rewrite this, y minus 1. Add the 1 to both sides. And now we get y equals 1/4 x. Okay, so now we have different signs. And so we have more negatives than positives, so that means our answer is going to be a minus. And so now we just subtract. 2 minus 1 gives us 1. So negative 2 plus 1 is negative 1. So this equation is the equation of the line that's perpendicular to this line and goes through this point. All right, last example. So we're going to, didn't put the instructions on, but we're basically going to graph the perpendicular line that goes through this point. So first let's graph this y equals 2/3 x plus 1. So we go to our y-intercept of 1. And now we're going to do our slope. So we're going to go up 2 over 3, up 2 over 3, and let's go down 2 to the left 3, down 2 to the left 3. Now let's insert a line. Okay, so there's our first line. That's the y equals negative 2/3 x plus 1. And so we want it to go through this point. So we're going to graph that point first. 3, negative 1. And so the slope of this line is m equals 2/3. And so the slope of our perpendicular line, so it's going to be the opposite. So this is a positive, so we'll make that a negative. And then the reciprocal just means you're going to flip your fraction, and you get 3/2. So the slope of the perpendicular line is going to be negative 3/2. So go to the point that we started with, 3, negative 1, and go, now since it's negative, you want to be careful. You want to either do negative 3 over a positive 2, or a positive 3 over a negative 2, you do not want to do a negative over a negative, because a negative divided by a negative turns into a positive. So we do not want to do this. This is bad. Alright, so let's do negative 3, 1, 2, 3 over 2. Negative 3, 1, 2, 3 over 2. And then let's go up. 1, 2, 3 over 2. 1, 2, 3 over 2. And let's draw that line. And so now you can look at these two lines and they look like they cross at right angles, and that's because their slopes are opposite reciprocals of each other.